Let me ask you something before we get into it. When was the last time you got genuinely excited about something small? Not the kind of happiness you force yourself to feel because you think you should, but the real kind. Heart beating a little faster, actually looking forward to something. You might be eating better than ever, living more comfortably, with more freedom than you've ever had. But somehow, great food doesn't hit the same way anymore. Travel doesn't move you. Hobbies feel like you're going through the motions. Getting together with friends feels like an obligation. You're just checking off a box. You're not depressed, but you're not happy either. That numb, hollow, can't be bothered feeling is quietly taking over more and more people's midlife and later years. And most people assume it means they've gotten old, burned out, or simply run out of enthusiasm along the way. Today, I want to tell you something that goes against everything you'd expect. You're not broken. There is nothing wrong with your personality. Your life hasn't failed. What is happening is that your brain is rewriting how you perceive things in a way you can't see. And there is a real scientific explanation for all of it. If you're in that phase of life where you have everything you're supposed to want and feel almost nothing, subscribe to this channel. We're here to help you understand yourself again and find your way back to feeling alive. You're not alone in this quiet struggle. Millions of people are going through the exact same thing, and we're going to find the answers together. Here is one of the most ironic things about being human. When we're young, we grind for decades chasing stability, comfort, money, freedom, and then we actually get there, and life feels flat. You worked hard for years. You finally retired. No more early mornings or alarms. No more deadlines. No one to answer to. You can watch whatever you want, travel whenever you feel like it, eat well, do anything, and then a few months in, the shine is completely gone. You turn on a show you used to love. It feels bland. You go to a restaurant you once waited an hour for. It is fine, whatever. You meet up with friends, and the conversation feels recycled. You take a trip and feel nothing the whole time. And you start to wonder, am I depressed? Have I lost the ability to enjoy things? Is this just the rest of my life? Here is a clear answer. This is not depression. It is not a personality flaw. It is not that you don't deserve happiness. It is a psychological mechanism that has been studied and confirmed over and over again. It is called hedonic adaptation or happiness adaptation. In 1971, American psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell introduced the concept of hedonic adaptation. They found that no matter how positive an event is, winning the lottery, getting a promotion, getting married, buying a house, people's emotional state eventually drifts back to their original baseline. And the same goes for hardship. Even after major setbacks, people gradually adapt and return to something close to their previous level of well-being. It is like walking into an air-conditioned room on a hot day. The first few seconds feel incredible. 30 minutes later, you don't notice the cool air at all. The temperature hasn't changed, your body just adapted. Happiness works the same way. Whatever once amazed you, moved you, thrilled you, once it becomes routine, your brain stops sending pleasure signals. Once something is taken for granted, the reward system goes quiet. Brickman ran a study in 1978 that genuinely shocked people. He compared two groups, recent lottery winners, and people who had become paraplegic after accidents. Most people assumed the lottery winners would be riding a permanent high, and the accident victims would be devastated beyond recovery. The results were the opposite of what everyone expected. 6 months later, the lottery winners reported happiness levels no higher than the average American, and the accident victims, while reporting lower happiness, were far less miserable than anyone had predicted. We are adaptation machines. The biggest joy fades with repetition. The hardest circumstances become livable with time. That is why someone can spend their whole life dreaming of retiring, to play golf every day and feel bored within 2 months of actually doing it. Why someone who dreamed of lazy days watching shows and eating good food finally gets there and just feels empty. Why a person can have a genuinely good marriage and after decades, their partner's presence becomes like air, invisible, unnoticed, taken completely for granted. The love didn't disappear, the friendship didn't fade, life didn't get worse. Your brain just got too good at adapting. So good that it normalized happiness right out of existence. This mechanism evolved to protect us, to keep us from being overwhelmed by emotion. But in modern life, it became the thing that quietly steals our sense of aliveness. The numbness you feel right now isn't coldness. It is your brain working exactly as designed. If hedonic adaptation is the numbness that comes from external repetition, the second layer goes deeper into the physical changes happening inside your brain itself. The dopamine reward circuit. Most people have a fundamental misunderstanding about dopamine. They think it is the pleasure chemical. It is not. Dopamine is the anticipation and motivation chemical. It doesn't peak when you're enjoying something. It peaks when you're waiting for it, wanting it, gearing up for it. Why does looking at a menu feel more exciting than actually eating the meal? Why does the drive to the airport feel more electric than arriving at the destination? Why does the week before a vacation feel better than the vacation itself? Dopamine. And here is the part that matters. Brain imaging research consistently shows that, as we age, the number of dopamine receptors in the brain naturally decreases, especially in the regions tied to reward and motivation. The decline is significant. In plain terms, you haven't lost the desire to feel good. Your brain just has fewer receptors to pick up the signal. Dopamine responds intensely to things you've never experienced before. It drops off fast with repetition. When you're young, life is full of firsts: first love, first time driving, first trip abroad, first real paycheck. Every one of those detonates dopamine. But by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, most experiences have already happened, and your receptor count is lower on top of that. The double effect makes it genuinely hard to be moved by things the way you once were. You haven't lost your passion. Your brain is just following its natural biological timeline. That is a cold truth, but it is also a liberating one. There is nothing wrong with you. Your brain is running exactly as nature intended. A lot of people assume the flatness comes entirely from hedonic adaptation and dopamine decline. But the third layer, the deepest, most significant, and most overlooked one, is a psychological crisis that only comes with real maturity. Developmental psychologist Erikson called it the conflict between ego integrity and despair. It is the eighth and final stage of human development, the last major psychological task of a lifetime. Erikson believed that after around age 65, people often begin to look back over their lives. If you can accept the life you lived, make peace with the choices you made, and feel a sense of wholeness and self-worth, you reach ego integrity, a quiet, settled peace. But if you're full of regret, resentment, and self-rejection, if you feel like your life was wasted, that you were let down, that none of it meant anything, you fall into despair. And that despair doesn't always look like grief or rage. It often looks like numbness, disengagement, a complete inability to care about anything. You think you're just bored, but your brain is actually doing something profoundly heavy, taking stock of an entire life and trying to find its meaning. Now put all three together, and you can finally see yourself clearly. Hedonic adaptation has made you numb to everything familiar and good. Declining dopamine receptors have weakened your drive toward anything new, and the psychological task of ego integrity has pulled your attention away from small pleasures and toward the biggest question of all: did my life mean something? All three at once. That is why you land in this state that is not sad, not happy, not painful, not joyful, just flat, just quiet. This is not your failure. This is a psychological transition that comes for almost everyone who lives long enough. You're not withering, you're shifting. You haven't reached the end. You've reached the entrance to the next chapter. And the good news is, all three of these mechanisms can be actively worked with. You don't have to just accept the numbness. You can use what we know about the brain to wake your sense of aliveness back up. First, actively disrupt hedonic adaptation with small doses of novelty. The engine of hedonic adaptation is familiarity. The only way to counter it is unfamiliarity, and you don't need to quit your job or blow up your life to get there. You just need to add a tiny bit of strange to each day. Take a different route on your walk, one you've never taken before. Order a coffee flavor you've never tried. Eat at a place you've driven past 100 times, but never gone into. Ask your partner about something from their past you've never actually talked about. The brain is remarkably sensitive to small novelty. Just a little bit of different is enough to reactivate the perception that habit has been suppressing. A lot of older adults in the US join community gardens, craft groups, or short hiking clubs, not because those activities are thrilling, but because they deliver a steady stream of small surprises that hedonic adaptation can't fully neutralize. The goal is to tear a small opening in the routine and let freshness back in. Second, retrain your dopamine system by building anticipation instead of chasing outcomes. Dopamine doesn't love results, it loves the build-up. A great dinner gives you a few minutes of pleasure. Planning a great dinner gives you days of anticipation. Arriving at a destination feels good briefly. Researching the trip, packing, getting ready. That stretch is where the energy actually lives. So instead of only pursuing enjoyable outcomes, deliberately create small things to look forward to. Before you go to sleep, identify one small thing tomorrow that you're mildly excited about. A specific tea you want to try. 10 minutes on a bench in the park. An episode of a documentary you've been saving. A quick message to an old friend. These things seem almost too small to matter, but they keep your dopamine system consistently activated, giving you a reason to get up in the morning and something to move toward during the day. Research consistently shows that maintaining a steady stream of small anticipations is one of the most powerful predictors of well-being in middle and later life. Third, lean into the ego integrity work. Actively make meaning of your life instead of drifting through the uncertainty. Don't be afraid to look back. Don't run from the regrets. Each night before you sleep, take 1 minute to name something you did well in this life. You raised kids, you showed up to work for decades. You took care of your family, you survived hard things. You helped someone, you stayed kind when it would have been easier not to. Every small acknowledgement like that is a brick in the foundation of ego integrity. Your life doesn't need to have been perfect. It just needs to have been yours. And you need to be able to say you tried. As you slowly make peace with the life you've lived, the hollow feeling starts to fill with something quieter and more durable than excitement, meaning. And when meaning comes in, the numbness naturally begins to lift. You start to see that ordinary moments matter, not because they're thrilling, but because they're part of a whole life that was real. You might still feel like there is a thick wall between you and everything. You're tired. You spent a lifetime showing up for your family, your work, everyone else, rarely for yourself. That is not a character flaw. You just went a very long time without being treated gently, including by yourself. The numbness you're carrying right now isn't a wound, it is a medal. It means you weathered the storms. You held things together under pressure. You made it here. Your heart isn't dead, it is resting, it is sorting through things. It is waiting for spring like a tree in winter, bare on the outside, but rooted deep underground, quietly preparing for the next season of growth. What you're feeling right now isn't the end. It is the silence before something new begins. You deserve to feel life again. You deserve to stop for a flower, smile over a cup of tea, feel warmed by a real conversation. You don't need grand, dramatic happiness. You just need to pick back up the small, beautiful things that habit buried. If something in this video finally put words to a silence you've been carrying for a long time, give it a like. Thank you for being someone who worked hard their whole life and still wants to live it well. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and come share your story in the comments. When was the last time you felt genuinely happy, moved, or excited even for a moment? What was it? It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be impressive. Just real. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I'll be in the comments. Let's find our way back to a life that actually feels like something. Together.